the code, the game, and APHRA. APHRA, when I say that, what comes up for you? If you're a doctor, if you're a health practitioner, then many of us will have an immediate fear reaction, and rightly so. If you have not been through an APHRA experience, then you don't know what it's like. I have been through. And in maybe July 2020, no, it must have been further along than that, maybe September 2020, I get an email from AHPRA, and I've been named on a complaint. It was actually about a registrar of mine, but the person had just thrown my name in there because I was the senior doctor at the practice, and they just thought, well, let's put Tom's name in there as well. So I look up the notes. I've never even seen this patient for that case. I had seen him before, but nothing to do with it. It was about an EPC. The doctor wouldn't give them an EPC. They didn't meet the criteria. They complained to AHPRA. The registrar had already been through this without my knowledge. I didn't know. And then I get to go through that. Complete that, contact my medical indemnity people. I'm like, great, geez, that was kind of weird, because what was interesting was that the complaint had been made in February. And presumably they had just went, oh, well, that's dealt with. We're not actually going to let Dr. Rolley know about this. It's fine. So that's curious in itself. You may have a backlog of complaints that they previously have not dealt with. And then if something comes up, then you'll get to deal with those. So know immediately straight out the gate that if you get a funny AHPRA one, that there might be more coming. And this is what happened to me. I submit that one, and then the next day, it's a Friday, there is an email that comes again from AHPRA. And I'll open this up. Now, this is November 2020. And one of my esteemed colleagues has made a mandatory report. They had contacted their legal people and they said, yep, this is clearly a mandatory one. Now, what got told to them? I don't know. They were pretty triggered. I said, hey, you're abusive of power. You're abusive of power. The way that you're treating everyone in the practice, it's abusive. You are in an elevated position of power as a doctor, and you're using it to get stuff done, and it's causing all sorts of mayhem. And they went after me, and I was like, okay, you want to have a fight? Okay, I'll have a fight. But that was the culmination. I'm like, hey, you're abusive of power. And so they reported me to AHPRA, which was pretty funny. I was like, hey, I'm saying you're abusive of power. Now, the weirdest thing happens after that. I get this 2 weeks to reply, and there's like 8 patients. 8 patients, 2,500 pages of notes, each out of order, that you don't, when you download from Genie, it doesn't come in chronological order. It comes in sections. Here's your notes. Here's your reports. Here's your letter. First thing, just putting that together was brutal. So we got an extension, and then dealing with the lawyers was fascinating. It was like, oh, I went through two times doing my best. Like, no, we don't want what happened. We want to know what you were thinking. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I get my report in and nothing happens for 7 months. I'm like, oh my God, have you forgotten about me? What the hell's going on here? And finally, 7 months later, they say, this is too hard for us. We're sending you to the medical board. So this is like June 2021. And then we're deep in COVID. And the medical board's like, it's COVID. We can't do anything. March 2022, I finally have a 4-hour interview with the medical council. And at the end of that, they're like, hey, you can clearly consult. You're fine as a doctor. They put me through a test case and whatever. And I'm like talking through my clinical reasoning. We'll see you in July 2023. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Now, notice how long these time frames are and how tempting it is to suppress and deny what has happened. It's so much easier not to talk about this stuff. But when I've shared it before, other people start telling me they've been through similar. Oh, yeah, that happened to me. That happened to me, but no one's open about it. And so I want to introduce you to this idea of the code. What is the code? A code is a way of living. And it's about a single idea that is best phrased as stop fucking lying. Stop fucking lying about what's going on. Because the consequences of lying and suppressing this and pretending, we know what happens. 16 doctors suicided over a period of time because of AHPRA notifications. And that does not include the ones who developed addictions, the ones who got divorced. Do you know how stressful this is on a marriage? If you've got marriage and kids and an AHPRA notification and you're a doctor, your life just got difficult. Because the strangest thing starts happening, or at least for me, it was this doubt that came in when I was seeing patients. I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. If I do this, are they going to report me? Is this going to be reported? And am I going to have to go through this nightmare again? And it's not that AHPRA is bad. I don't think they're bad. I do think that they could seriously compress the amount of time that it takes. Like, how did it take 7 months to work out that they couldn't handle this? What was going on? What was going on? And now, even now, they're delayed. They get into July 2023 when it's meant to be reviewed. I'm like, hey, you haven't contacted me. And finally, they contact and say, hey, we'd like to see all of your patients from the last 10 months. So the code is an idea about being real. What are the facts of my life? The facts are that if you go to AHPRA, don't put in AHPRA.gov.au because they haven't worked out how to redirect that website. It'll show you an error. You have to put in the www.AHPRA, which should immediately tell you the level of competence that we are dealing with. Like, seriously, the level of competence to be unaware that your own website doesn't work? Come on, people. So that's what you're expecting when you're in there. But first of all, this code is an idea of first being real. What is going on? Yeah, 8 cases. There was a handing handle down. I had to do a review of opiate medication. I went through that. They said 6 months. I did it in 1 month. It's fine. You go through an hour per day for 12 hours, make notes, and then put the report together. And what you'll find is there is no evidence for long-term opiates. Like, if you have patients on long-term opiates, you need to consider that there is no evidence for that works, and you should stop them. But if we're going to be real, then there are some corollary experiences that go with that, and that's called raw feelings. The feelings that I have about it. How did I feel about getting reported? I was angry, like scared and angry. And then over the course of this period of time, I've just become disappointed. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have tools, I have experience, I have support, I have extensive ability to get through difficult circumstances. But what about doctors who do not? What about nurses and other healthcare practitioners that do not have any tools to deal with this level of difficulty? That's why we're getting the suicides, the addictions, the divorce. I bet you that's going on. I don't know whether that is, but it is so stressful. It has to come out somewhere. But we've got this idea, coming back to the code, of the real facts and the raw feelings about that. And then an idea around focus, relevant focus. What were the stories? What was going on that got me there? And when I look back, I was clearly burnt out. I had been given, or I had allowed in many difficult patients. And in retrospect, should have been watching the difficulty of the patients and how many there were. I had to take a break from GP, exit out for 3 months. And do you know what? Doctors came back. They said, Tom, your patients are so difficult. And I'm like, yeah, I'm exhausted. But that was something that I didn't recognize, and I wasn't able to hold the boundary against, to say, no more of these patients that don't get better, that just continually have chronic anxiety or chronic pain, all of the heart sink patients. You get too many of those, then you are at risk. And it happens over time. As a registrar, you're not dealing with that. You're dealing with the acute medicine, which allows you to get people better. But as you go along in the game, then you start to get difficult patients. And too many of those, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. But the stories that got me there are worth looking at. Is it relevant? And then having to go through and examine all of these patients that I was reported for and looking at what had gone on. And what was very clear was my notes were not up to scratch. And most likely your notes are not going to be up to scratch either. Because even if you're documenting what's going on, what they want is what you are thinking. And if you're not documenting what you are thinking, then you're going to have a difficult time. You're going to have to go back and imagine what it was like. It's so much easier if it's just documented there. And then out of this, the code says, hey, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be aware of my feelings. I'm going to keep it relevant. And from that, there will be results. Hopefully, I have a result that I have to provide to them. And for the last 10 months, my notes will be reviewed. They're going to pull 45 patients out of potentially, I think, maybe 3,000 appointments that have happened over that 10 months. And we're going to pull out 45 randomly, perhaps. I'm sure that they can pull who I've prescribed opiates to or benzos to or any risky drugs, and they're going to get pulled, and we'll have a look and see what's going on. But this has been an extended period of managing notes. You don't find this out until afterwards, like, oh my goodness, that is what the notes were required. So perhaps that might be something you could take from this. So the code, real, raw, relevant results, results in your life. And then this allows you to do something very interesting, that you can look at where you are today. What are the facts and the feelings and the focus and the fruit that you are enjoying today or not enjoying, suffering from? And if you are willing to own that place and say, this is my reality right now, then this gives you a very interesting opportunity. And that is to stand there in the truth of today, the facts of today, and then look around at what the options are to make your life something different. And that could take two important directions. One, to fix that which is not working and to double down on that which is. And you can do this in your health. You can do this in your spirituality. You can do this in your family, and you can do this in your role as a doctor. Are you doing work that you want to do right now? Or are you burnt out? Are you frustrated? Are you lost? Have you been wanting to do this other thing? Go into skin, go into anesthetics, go into detox, go into whatever, but you are not willing to even allow that possibility. But that could be a possibility over the next 12 months, that you arrive in a year's time and look back and go, oh, wow, I was there and this was working and this wasn't, and now I'm here. And the facts of my day today are that this has changed. These things are different. These things were, and now they are different. And the work that's required is not that difficult. It's just a daily execution of things that are going to take you from where you were through to where you want to be. But if you never allow yourself to define what's going on today, then any targets, any goals for the future will be fantasy. You say you want to go to Sydney and that you are in Brisbane right now, but really you're in Tenterfield. And you're like, I'm going to catch a plane from Brisbane to Sydney, and you go to the airport, except there's no Brisbane airport in Tenterfield. It's ridiculous. You have to own that you're in Tenterfield, and then you've got an option. I could drive to Brisbane and catch a plane. I could drive to Sydney. Both of those options become real. But if you're lying to yourself and saying, well, I'm in Brisbane, I'm there, but in fact you're not, then the ability to get to Sydney is zero. And this is the same for your life. So we've got these two interesting ideas. And soon enough, at the end of this year, my impossible game is that the AHPRA notification resolves. You can go check it out right now. Go look at my report and it will have 5 criteria, one of which is to have a notes review. And that's coming up. But to get that out publicly so you know, and you might have all sorts of judgments about me. It's like, well, clearly you're a messed up doctor. You didn't know what was going on. How did this even happen? Until it happens to you and you're like, oh my goodness, this is so stressful, so difficult. So it is a challenge. And AHPRA and the Medical Council, in my judgment, are largely unaware of the actual difficulty of this. My favorite part, about 18 months in, they send me an email saying, hey, if you're struggling, we've got some support for you. I'm like, you're going to send it 18 months into this thing? 18 months later, you finally work out that it might be stressful for a health practitioner to go through this stuff, let alone the difficulties of actually doing it. I mean, it's hard. I do hope that you do not have this, but if you do, know that your notes should be good. Put extra effort. Have a notes review regularly. And that might be where you want to be in 12 months, that there is a scheduled monthly review of notes so that if you do get bad things happen, AHPRA or sued or whatever, you're covered, you know. Guess how relieving that is? Instead of fearing this experience. So it's been hard. It's had effects on me. It's been brutal at times. It's affected my health. It's affected my family. It's affected my money that I've earned from medicine. And it's affected my questioning of what the hell is going on in life. Like, why have I been put through this? Dear God, why has I been put through this? And they're questions that are valid. So my hope for you is that you do not have to go through this. But I want to give you these tools, the code and the game, that they are protective against bad things, but they also open up a reality for you as a doctor that is powerful, that you can resolve the issues in your life and you can double down on the things that are working and make them better. And life opens up for you. Better relationship with your spouse, better relationship with your kids, better health, better connection to your heart, to your mind, clarity, meditation, all of these things open up. But it begins with an idea, a concept called the code, a way of living in truth, in facts. And then when you're willing to do this, to open up an impossible game for you, from where you are to change your reality to something greater, something better, revealing more of yourself, of who you are and what you are capable of. And that this benefits you, this benefits your patients, and this benefits your family. You as a more evolved version of yourself has many benefits for you and for your world. So if this is something that interests you, then what I want you to do is hit me up with a direct message, a DM. Say, hey, this is what's going on for me right now. Let me know the situation that you are dealing with. That's all I got for you today. I hope you're having a valuable and awesome day. And to bring in this original concept of the code and the game into your awareness and like, whoa, where am I lying to myself? And what's that costing you? Thanks for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you on another episode very soon. Catch you then.